Well, phase one of the ceasefire has now been completed. Phase two calls for the reopening of the crucial Rafah crossing with Egypt, as Hind mentioned there. The U.S. brokered 20-point plan says the crossing should be reopened in both directions for people, as agreed in the January 2025 ceasefire plan. But Israel now says it would only reopen the border after the search for the body of the last captive in Gaza is finished, which has now happened, with no confirmation of it allowing movement from both sides. And phase two also calls for the crossing to be open for aid and humanitarian access into Gaza. Israel now says the border will operate under its full oversight and for people only and not unrestricted aid. Joining us now from Ramallah on Al Jazeera is Mustafa Barghouti, who's the leader of the Palestinian National Initiative and former peace negotiator between Palestine and Israel. Mr. Barghouti, thank you very much for your time. Before we discuss the second phase of the ceasefire and what needs to happen, I just wanted to get your thoughts first on this moment, which the Israeli Prime Minister has described as an achievement, retrieving the last remains of the captives there. You know, what is your sentiment, given that Palestinian bodies are still buried under the rubble in Gaza or held without identification?
Well, of course, the big question now that Israel got the last body they had in Gaza is who's going to pressure Israel to release the 10,000 Palestinian captives in Israeli jails who are subjected to torture, subjected to starvation, and of whom 122 already died because of bad treatment in Israeli prisons. Who's going to force Israel to release the 700 Palestinian bodies that are still captives in Israeli custody, including so many children and so many women? This is a big question to the whole international community. So much attention was paid to one body, and I am happy that this body went back to his family. But the question is, who's going to care about the 700 Palestinian bodies and about, as you said, maybe thousands of people who are still under the rubble? Actually, as I understood, the Israelis had to examine 250 bodies before they found the Israeli body. So what happened to the rest of the Palestinian bodies who are still buried in the same area?
Yeah. And this
is the big question. The lack of equal treatment, the lack of respect to Palestinians as equal human beings is really astonishing.
Indeed, and there's a lot of anger about this, of course, in Gaza and among Palestinians. The focus now has shifted to phase two of the ceasefire, Mr. Barghouti, with this captive file now closed. How do you see it proceeding? What do you think is the balance of power now in the negotiations over aid, crossings and reconstruction? Will Israel, do you think, follow through, or will they attempt to create new pretexts to delay or narrow the implementation of phase two of the ceasefire?
There are no excuses left for Israel because not only to allow the opening of Rafah crossing in both directions, but also there are no excuses for Israel's continued bombardment on Gaza. You know, they are not respecting the ceasefire. The ceasefire is respected only unilaterally from the Palestinian side. And Israel has violated the ceasefire agreement already 1,300 times, taking the lives of more than 484 Palestinians, including, by the way, 160 children, and injuring more than 1,300. And now there are no excuses for this continued bombardment. And the issue of Rafah crossing, I believe Netanyahu will still try to manipulate and not allow a true free movement. He is already talking about more restrictions and controlling who's going to get into Gaza, and that he might say to some people, you can get in, others you can't get in. And most importantly, it is clear that Israel is going to restrict the numbers, although we all know that there are 100,000 Gazans on the Egyptian side who are impatiently waiting to get back to their homes in Gaza.
Right. There are questions on whether they will actually be allowed to return. How are you expecting the Egyptians to cooperate or not cooperate on this? What are you expecting from the Egyptians on this issue of Rafah reopening on both sides?
We expect from the Egyptians, the Qataris, and also the Americans to pressure Israel to allow true free movement for the people of Gaza. There are so many people who need to get to their education, so many patients, 18,000 patients in Gaza are there without treatment because the treatment is not available in Gaza. We expect them to pressure Israel to allow people to get into Gaza, including medical teams that are impatiently waiting to come in and help people, and allowing also medical equipment, etc., etc. I think there should be a lot of pressure, but we all know that the main party that can really pressure Israel and that has the leverage is the United States of America. So everything depends really on Mr. Trump, on whether he wants really to exercise pressure on Israel to allow free movement for people for at least pure humanitarian reasons.
Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. Thank you for your time, Mustafa Barghouti, joining us there from Ramallah in the occupied West Bank.
Thank you.
Don't miss out and get full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news and expert insights. Like, share, stay ahead.